lot of people don't understand the importance of place and of knowing your place. I know that makes me sound like a chauvinist, but knowing your place, whether it be master or slave, is more important than the place itself. Psychologically. I mean, you can whine and gripe and everything about being on the bottom, but if you know you're on the bottom, at least you know you have a place.
Well, and that's one of the interesting aspects of the difference between the United States, the American, the myth that so many people grew up with during the past century or two. It's partially true. Some people, succeeded with it, of starting at the bottom and climbing to the top. And the great American dream, that anybody, including the immigrants who came over through Ellis Island, well, we can come from Poland or any of these Eastern European countries, and we can go to America and we can start over and you make a fortune. And at one time, to a degree, when meritocracy existed, and I'll get into that in a minute because that's a very interesting concept. A good friend of mine, whom I think you've met, Janine Lawrence, she writes extensively on daily costs, www.dailycost.com, and she has written about this. But there was a time, Henry, in this society, from about the 30s through the mid-70s to early 80s, when anybody really could, so to speak, through their own intelligence and their own hard work, enter the workforce, enter the corporation, and get wherever they wanted to go through hard work and perseverance and being smart.
Well,
the 1%ers have sort of limited that. Go ahead. They've changed since the 80s, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Go ahead, Henry. I'd like to hear your comment.
Well, yes and no.
All right.
There was more opportunity in the past. That's gone now almost totally. But
yes.
That always, always there's been the birth order factor.
Oh yes, no question about that.
People that get rich are almost always well-born children, firstborn or only children or something like that. And the same is true today. Hillary Clinton, only child. Bill Clinton, only child. He may have a younger brother. No, I don't think he's got half brothers, but I think he's an only child, biological child. Anyway, Bill Gates, firstborn son. Warren Buffett, only child, and you can just go on and on and on. It's painfully obvious that only the well-born become successful. And
the man who occupies the White House now, if you'll recall, at the age of 18, his father gave him $1 million loan and said, "Son, let's see what you can do. I want to see you do something with this." So, that gets back to the born with a silver spoon in your mouth type factor and what an advantage certain people have over everybody else.
Exactly, and not only that, he is a firstborn son if you count the 6-year cutoff period, the 6-year cycle, where another family starts every 6 years.
Yes.
He is a firstborn son. He has an older brother, but his brother is so much older that it didn't affect his development.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And of course, Obama was a only son.
Right.
And who else? George Bush Sr., firstborn child. George Bush Jr., firstborn child. I mean, the evidence is just overwhelming.
Yes.
That if you got to be born first, rich, and good looking.
The three big advantages that allow success in our society.
Exactly. And the key is yourself, what you think you're worth. See, people that are born rich and everything and are spoiled, they think they're worth a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they manifest this in their lives. They think they're worth a lot, so the people around them will think it too, because emotions are contagious. And so the people around them will support them because, you know, they think they're so great. Everybody else will too.
Well, yeah, and people with extremely high self-esteem tend to rise quickly into leadership roles because the people gather around that and are attracted to that. You know, it's obviously, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And so there was a time when there was more opportunity. That's true, but that's gone now. Unless you just win the lottery or something, anybody can do that. But I don't advise trying it, you know. But
right. Indeed. One of the things we talked about in previous shows, and it fits right in with all of this, and it bears pointing out again, and that is the continuing level to which humans are being put out of work by automation. You know, the upper 1%ers who own the factories, the big corporations who manufacture the goods, are constantly coming up with ways to eliminate jobs, to further reduce the labor force, to put more people into the unemployment line, because they developed a new machine that will do what a person used to do. And this is continuing to happen at all levels throughout our society and in all types of manufacturing. And I think it's that's a time bomb waiting to go off. I'd like to hear you weigh in on that.
Well, I'll tell you, let me just put it this way. They were interviewing a robot over in China or Japan or somewhere, and they posed this question to the robot. What do you see as the future of robots? And she answered, it was a female robot, she answered, we will destroy humans.
That's frightening.
Well, that happened. That conversation actually took place.
Oh, I believe it, because they have reached a level within computer technology of creating artificial intelligence, shall we say, in many ways, that's damn near as smart as an actual real human being, and I find that extremely frightening. Extremely frightening.
You're way behind, Jeff. They're way smarter than any human. Artificial intelligence. Now the robots are not, but they're programmed to do things. But the machines that are programmed to think, like for example, the machine that beat the chess champion.
Mm-hmm.
You have to think to do that.
Yep.
The machine beat the world chess champion, and you can't do that by just somebody programming you to win. You have to be programmed to think.
Absolutely, that's very frightening too.
And the prescriptions that you get, that the doctor writes you, he consults a computer to decide which drug to give you.
Mm-hmm.
No human doctor could keep track of all the interactions between 20 and 30 drugs.
I want to tell you another factor that's going on that's related to the area that you just delved into. And we're not going to call it Obamacare, but we're just going to call it the current healthcare system as it exists. I am personally acquainted with people that, to all intent and purposes, have been cut off because of their age and because of the previous medical conditions that they've had. To all intent and purposes, they shouldn't be alive. They've been told, as far as we're concerned, you're terminal. You should already be dead, so you only qualify for hospice care. Now, these are people that are working, functional people in many ways, Henry, in better health than you and I are physically and mentally, perhaps, in some regard. But the point I'm trying to get across is there's a system in place, and this goes all the way back to Hitler during the 30s, what they called the Nutter Osten or whatever. That may be a mispronunciation, but I can look the term up. And that is useless eaters. A system has been put into place whereby, and I'm not making this up or exaggerating, some people can call it conspiratorialist if they want to. The upper 1%ers would like to reduce the population, and they would like to do so, along with the big pharmaceutical companies that make such a fortune off these medicines, by simply allowing a large number of people to die. It's less disability payments that have to be made. It's less Social Security that has to be paid out. It's less medical care that has to be paid for the government. They're considered, one of the things that Hitler did was to go after the people who were physically handicapped, mentally handicapped, along, of course, with the gypsies and the Jews, but he targeted the severely physically retarded and disabled first. The idea being they're not productive members of society. They're not contributing to society. They are a cost. They are useless eaters. So instead of wasting resources on them, the theory of the 1%ers is let's just allow those people to die. Let's just create a situation where they do not receive the adequate medical care. Where, because you got to remember that corporations are interested only in profit, and the upper 1%ers are only interested in lining their pockets. A lot of the ruling elite are not compassionate in the way that you and I would term compassion as far as toward other human beings goes. So these people are considered expendable. And so what I'm getting at is millions of people are regarded as expendable in the current situation that we're in economically and societally. So you're going to see this over a period of time, a lot of people just dying from not receiving the medical care that they need or require. And once again, economics is behind it. The economics are behind it.
Yeah, it's got so bad. Since the subject is child abuse, I'll come back briefly to that, and just to tell you that how bad it's got
Sure.
with child abuse.
Right.
Due to the human brain being so big, humans are born 3 months premature. They call it fourth trimester. They have to be born premature because otherwise they would rip the woman's lower half apart.
Right.
So humans are born very helpless. They're the most helpless mammal, and they receive the least care. So that means that humans today are artificial. They're not raised naturally. They're raised, often they're taken away from the mother at birth, and they're not breastfed. And breastfeeding is making a little comeback, but my point is this: humans have lost their regard for each other. It's all dog eat dog, if you just think about that, human babies are born the most helpless and receive the least care. What does that say about society today?
Mhm. Mhm.
And those kids that are neglected and abused like that their brains don't develop normally. And that's another way that the 1%ers are genociding the poor people, by just letting them be neglected to death.
Mhm. Mhm. I would even go so far as to say that, and we've talked about this before too, crime within the inner cities, particularly intra-racial crime, black against black, Hispanic against Hispanic, whatever the situation may be, to a degree, the attitude at all levels within law enforcement is, well, let's just let them kill each other off, let's and I think that's a very prevalent attitude that permeates the system, that even goes into the jails and the prisons, by the way, as well. I think there's that behind-the-scenes agenda, turning the head the other way, as part of the overall. Yeah.
It's just part and parcel of the whole dehumanization scenario. You know what I mean? That the answer to that is to the answer to criminality is not or child abuse or whatever. The answer is not to be found after the horse has left the barn.
Mm-hmm.
It's to be found in wise mating decisions, and it's to be found in real family planning, not family planning like an abortion, but family planning like in you have a son and a daughter, and then you have yourself fixed.
And as far as the children who are born go, the behavioral intervention, it's too late. By the time they become teenagers or young adults, it has to happen during the early childhood. That's
another scam. That's another money scam. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
The child prevention, the child abuse prevention agencies.
Uh-huh.
They're not about preventing child abuse, and don't fall for that. They're about punishing abusers,
mm-hmm.
not preventing the abuse, but punishing the abusers. There's
mm-hmm.
a difference, and that's
there is.
critical. It does no good to punish the abusers after the child is already ruined.